And good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome everybody to Chalk Talk. I'm your host, Kim Davis. Happy April. Today is April the 5th. We have completed the first full quarter of 2022. So listen, it's the second quarter. We are headed toward halftime. So whatever it is that you were supposed to get done to start off your 2022, and if you haven't done it, it's okay. We have started a new quarter. And you got time to do it. So, listen, we have a lot to get to on today's show. Super excited that you are tuning in and joining. A couple of things that I want to make sure you know about. I'm just looking because we've got some new things added here. They've got, let me see, what is this? Oh, the little background music. So that's new, right? I have this platform and they've added something in the last few days, and we don't want to hear that, but I just wanted to see what it was. So good morning, welcome to Chalk Talk. Thank you for tuning in. Did anybody watch that the Final Four, women's Final Four and the men's Final Four? Great basketball over the past several days. I really did want to see Coach K win on Saturday to get to the championship. I was really hoping that he would have gone out with another title. But man, that Kansas and North Carolina game last night was something else. And just so you know, I was at home on my sofa pulling for Kansas. So congratulations to the Kansas Jayhawks, Rock Chalk, Bill Self and his squad. All the other stuff aside, that was a really good game, and he made the necessary adjustments at halftime after, jumping out early, then getting down by 15 at the half. Then the second half was just, it was a real fight to the end. So a really good basketball game. Both teams should be proud of just how they showed up. And on the women's side, congratulations to Dawn Staley and South Carolina and her whole team. What a performance, right? They were that team was number one from the start of the season all the way to the end, from wire to wire. They were atop the women's basketball game, and playing UConn for the championship, handing Gino Ariana, the coach at UConn, his first defeat in a championship game. He was 11-0 in championship games going into Sunday's matchup with South Carolina. Now he's 11-1. But still, he's won 11 championships. So as Dawn Staley said in her remarks after the game, she said, listen, basically UConn has been the standard. I mean, historically, they've just done so much great work. It's not just a good program. It's a great, it's history, really. And you've got to give them credit for that. So credit to Gino, but congratulations to Dawn Staley. And you know what? One of the things that she did when they were on the podium after the win, getting the trophies and the celebration had begun, she said, listen, I want to make sure that I give some shine to the players that you don't usually see. And she named the players that don't get in the game. She said, because these players get us ready for these competitions. And I thought, you know what? That is what leadership looks like. That's what leadership looks like. So it was great it was great. It's really who Dawn Staley is and how she leads, making sure that everybody felt fine about what was happening, felt included, and giving them, it was just good. It was good to see. So I thought, what a great way to, for this whole thing to play out. It was just great to see. So congratulations to all the colleges. Somebody posted something yesterday on Twitter, which I thought was interesting, about the championship game last night being on TNT. Like, really, NCAA, you're going to make people have to have a cable subscription to watch the championship? It is years, been on CBS, and I understand the TV partnership and the contracts where they have TNT and they're on CBS. But that was interesting. I mean, I have cable, so but I do think about it. Not everybody does, and so that's where we're going in sports now with these huge TV contracts where you're not going to have it on over the air television. So, the assumption that everybody has some sort of a subscription service or cable is, anyway, that's for another day. But great competition over the weekend, and congratulations to Kansas on the men's side, and congratulations to South Carolina on the women's side. So the NBA season is winding down. There's been a lot of conversation about what this Rockets team is going to do, and I say that because that's the team I cover. They're one more week left. Like next Sunday is their last game. They play at home against the Hawks. Season will be over. Off season begins. So I'm just wondering if you saw anybody if you watched any of the NCAA tournament, and if you saw anybody playing in any of those games that you thought, man, I'd like to see him, a member of the Houston Rockets. I'd like to see the Rockets. I'd like to see Rafael Stone and the Rockets bringing this young man to this Rockets team, right? The Rockets obviously will be in the lottery, and we'll get another high draft pick coming up in the upcoming draft. Some additional talent to add to the young talent they have, and obviously this season you'd like to see them go out and also get some sort of veteran leadership, because they're going to, through the draft, you're going to get another young player, and you've got that. Even though you may get a player that is not as young as the guys you already have, right? You've got these 20-year-olds. You had 4 19-year-olds starting last season. So who will they bring in? And we talked about the way that this Rockets team has shown up and has competed, even though they've got a record that puts them at the bottom, near the bottom of their conference, at the bottom of the league in terms of wins and losses. But just talking about how they show up, I'm just pulling up the standings. So in the standings, right now the Rockets are the dead last in the league. They've won 20 games, and they've lost 59. They are in the Western Conference. So they have the same record as Orlando. Orlando in the East is 20 and 59. So, clearly they're going to be in the lottery, but still playing hard, still in these games, getting leads and then losing them late and having to fight at the end to try to come back and recapture it. I'm thinking about the game on Sunday. It was another one of those games where, man, they were right there. They had a lead. They lost the lead. They got down. They fought their way back, but were not able to pull it off. Well, that's a lot, right? That's a lot to have to do. You expend so much energy when you're having to always, when you dig a hole, you have these big deficits, and you've got to expend so much energy to get back in the game. And then you're trying to close it out. So I'm sure those are some things that they will work on over the summer. I still think, although when you look at their record, if you don't really follow them, all you see is 20 and 59, and you're like, the Rockets are horrible. The Rockets are young, and they are definitely rebuilding, and that is what they've been very honest about. So I'm curious to see how things wind out. So let's talk a little bit about the standings in the West right now. So Phoenix has already clinched home court. Phoenix is number 1 in the West. They have a record of 62 wins and 16 losses. And remember, they've been without Chris Paul for a bit. He's injured. Should be back for the playoffs. Memphis is 2 in the Western Conference right now. If you look at playoff rankings, they're 7 games back, right, of Phoenix. So Memphis is the 2 seed at 55 and 23. Then there's Golden State at 3, Dallas at 4, Denver at 5, Utah at 6, Minnesota, the Clippers are 7 and 8, and then New Orleans and San Antonio 9 and 10. So that 7 through 10 group is the group that goes into the play-in. The Lakers are on the 11th spot. They're 31 and 47. They're 31-47. I mean, they're 2-8 over their last 10 games, and they are 31 games back. Right, they're 31 games behind the number one team in the West, which is Phoenix. So the Lakers are pretty much out, right? So just as a reminder about the play-in tournament, teams 7 through 10 will participate in the play-in to determine the playoff seeds of 7 and 8. So the spots have been pretty much decided. In the West, they are still, the Lakers are done, right? They're not in this last week of the season going to be able to move up to that 10th spot. They're 2 games behind San Antonio for the 10th spot. So the Lakers are done. That's out. In the East, you have, before we go to our special guest, Miami is the 1 seed right now in the East with a 51-28 record. Boston's 2, Milwaukee's 3. Brooklyn is 10. So they're in the play-in right now, right? They're in the play-in, but they're at the 10th spot. So that is what's happening as we head into this final full week of the NBA's regular season. I am excited now to switch gears and be able to talk a little bit of baseball with somebody who knows it better than really most people I've heard do it. Welcome, Jeremy. Thank you for coming back to Chalk Talk.
Hey, Kim. Appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. So we know what it was a short off season for the Astros because they won the World Series, but it's kind of long because we didn't know what was going to happen. Before we talk about what the Astros look like, were you surprised about anything that came out of the negotiations and that they ended up with in the new CBA?
No, it was a win for the players in many ways. It was some needed concessions by ownership for what was kind of a lopsided deal before. There's more to be done. Honestly, we're talking about entertainment, right? I mean, we're talking about showing up for a chemistry experiment, and there's nothing against chemists, but we're talking about entertainment with millions and millions of people, billions of people across the planet that are paying attention. So, it's the highest brand in the game. There's more to be done. With it, and the players had a pretty good step. They're still working on it now, which is good. We're not going to have 4 years of quiet, into the next time. So this is a good sign and a pretty big first step.
So that got done. We didn't really have to delay the season too much, right? And I was like, yeah, the owners are not going to let it get beyond that point where they get the whole 140 games because that would have cut into their TV money. So I felt like there would be some motivation. I also thought, maybe I'm wrong, that the owners wanted to kind of remind the players that they're in charge, right? We're going to lock you, because they could have played without an agreement, right? They could have gone to this, they didn't have to lock them out.
Yeah, Major League Baseball took that step for power. And, I say this as a business owner myself and as somebody, you need to, if you're the owner, you're taking a lot of the risk. And that's what it is. But once again, you're looking at a situation where Major League Baseball has decided in all the things they do that they want 100% thumb down control on things. And you're seeing it with some of the experiments in the game. You're seeing it with the baseball being changed out that happened last season without them telling. You're seeing the robo-umps and the bigger bases, all these things that are out there, the 7-inning doubleheaders.
Yeah.
You're looking at Wade's 20-round draft. Like, just pick something. How they're doing has to do with control. But look, ultimately the owners can't go out and play baseball themselves. They can't do it, and it has to be people on the field. And while the players understand the ownership level, right? Mm-hmm. They also understand their value in the whole process. And it's not a replaceable deal. Max Scherzer's a pretty good player. You go find somebody behind Max Scherzer out of AAA. It's not Max Scherzer. Is it a big leaguer? Yeah, but it's not Max Scherzer, right? And so the people that are selling the tickets are the ones that the fans are coming to see. They're not coming to see an analyst. They're not coming to see a GM. They're coming to see people on the field, and that has to be known. And Major League Baseball finally recognized some of that.
I'm talking to Jeremy Booth, who has been all things baseball, a player, a scout, and has, like you said, is now a business owner and still in the field of baseball and is an analyst. So let's talk about the Astros, right? You mentioned, Scherzer, you may be good behind him, so obviously there's a great transition to Correa, who left for Minnesota. Were you surprised with the Minnesota move, that he went to Minnesota?
I yes and no, and I say yes because it doesn't seem to fit for what the Twins want to do to win a championship, right? Is he a valuable piece? Absolutely. Is it something that puts a lot of the risk on the Twins? I mean, they could very easily have Carlos Correa for 3 years and not win anything, and that doesn't accomplish what you think the Twins would want to do. Because Correa controls the opt-outs, he controls the flow, if you will. So to me, it didn't make a whole lot of sense for them. I do understand why Correa did it. And that's because, as we talked about going into the offseason, we talked about this before, he wasn't going to get 10 years and $800 million. I mean, he wasn't going to do that, and that's what he was looking for. The injury history doesn't add up for it. The on-field production didn't add up for it. The fact he played shortstop, okay, that helps, right? But, the Rangers paid Corey Seager whatever they paid him, and that wouldn't have paid him that either. There's nothing against Corey, but that's a lot of money in a 10-year deal, and those don't make sense. If Carlos wanted to be a little more reasonable and take 7 years and 260, which is really good money, with some options after that, then he's still an Astro, right? The Astros didn't want to budge because Correa wouldn't budge. That's how that works. I'm not going to go above 5 and 160 planet Earth. You know what I mean? So it doesn't fit. I thought he'd end up somewhere else that had a better window to win. I knew New York wasn't a possibility, either one. Detroit seemed likely, but obviously they weren't in that ballpark financially. And the Astros weren't going to move, so you left with a couple options. Make no mistake, the Trevor Story signing in Boston sets up a market next year at the end of this season where Xander Bogaerts and Carlos Correa are now free agent shortstops that opt out. And then it's 2 instead of 6, right?
Right.
And so teams may be in a better position in a year from now. You might see something in Anaheim. You might see something in I doubt Baltimore, but they made a push this time. Who knows how Detroit's going to work out. It may come back to Houston. You don't know where they're going to be in a year. But you know is that this is a 1-year deal if everything goes anywhere near according to plan.
You said that, you mentioned Houston, because I wondered, is it possible that he comes back, or does Jeremy Pena come and give the Astros something that they feel like they may get? They're not saying he's Carlos, but from an on-field production standpoint, what do we expect that he might be able to do in his rookie season?
Jeremy Pena, what he's going to do is he's going to pick the baseball up and he's going to throw it across and he's going to execute defensively. That's what he's going to do. Mm-hmm. Offensively, in the big leagues, that's a question mark. I don't care who you are. I don't care if it's Gurriel or Bregman or Altuve or, the only certainty the Astros have had to really hit is Jordan Alvarez, right? I mean, that was one that everybody says this guy's going to absolutely hit, and he has. When you're a defense-first player like Pena, that the bat is going to be a question anyway. You're not coming to the big leagues because you can hit. You're coming to the big leagues because you can play defense and execute. And so we'll see what we get out of it. If Pena hits 250, 7-8 home runs, some doubles, plays good defense, hits 8th in the lineup and turns it over, you got a pretty good player. Is he going to be Correa? No, he's not going to be Correa. But again, Carlos Correa that we saw, 275 and 25 here and there, right? I mean, 100 games here,
right.
130. So I think he'll be more consistent. I think the body's a little bit different. I think you'll see somebody stay on the field. My concern with Jeremy Pena is that he's thrown into the fire into a window where the Astros are still expected to win. And that's a lot of pressure on a player. He's not growing up like a Jared Kelenic is able to do in Seattle with nobody around him where he has to really win today. Kelenic was able to go 0 for 60 last year and nobody said a word because he was doing it in a place where they were growing. Pena can't do that here. The city wants to win. The team's used to winning. He's got veterans trying to go out there. Pena has a rough 6 weeks, and you're going to send him back. And I don't know if that's the right thing to do for a kid like Jeremy Pena if you believe in him in the future.
Yuli Gurriel's had a good spring. Mm-hmm. Are you expecting him to continue? We saw what he did last year. We know some of the things. One of the players I'm really concerned to see how he comes back this year, before we get to pitching, is Bregman. I'm hoping that the Bregman that we saw last year and even a little bit the year before is because he was a little banged up, and that we see more of the MVP talk Bregman, some parts of that. What are your thoughts about how good this Astros team can be and how important I think a guy like Bregman is important to what they need?
Yeah, so the thing about this Astros team, when you take away Carlos Correa was still, and it needs to be said, and it's not denigrating who he is or as a player. It needs to be said, he was a 6 hitter on this team.
Yeah.
So that means 1 through 5 is still here. right? And then you have guys around him that are still here. You may have to reshuffle a little bit, but he wasn't hitting in the 2 spot. He wasn't hitting in the 3 spot. He wasn't leading off. Alvarez. He's a 6 hitter in Houston. And that just tells you how good this lineup still is. With a guy like Alex Bregman, I think this is Breggy's team now. And look, I have been, and I'm just going to say this tongue in cheek, I have been a little hard on the guy at different times on purpose for maturity level, because he spits nails and he competes and he hustles and he genuinely cares, right? And that's hard to find in some guys sometimes, is somebody who genuinely cares. He likes the role of, I'm going to put the city on my back and I'm going to carry it. He likes that role. He hasn't had to do that here, but at this point in time, I do believe, even without Altuve, that this is transition to his team. It's his turn to carry this forward, right? I think he's going to be healthy. I think he's going to perform. I think he's going to go out and play. I do not believe for 1 second any of the struggles that we've seen haven't had anything to do with injuries. I think it's 100% pain, 100% where he was physically, and he honestly deserves a lot of credit for, in the day and age where people will have a hangnail and sit down on the bench, for a month or two. He's just like, I'm gonna go out there. I got this. I'm not saying anything, but I'm gonna go play my tail off, and I'm gonna do it because I want to win a championship. So I think you're looking for a big year from him. I think you'll see him come into his own. I think he's going to have some more opportunities with people around him, Altuve and Alvarez and Gurriel. I think Gurriel, to your point there, has continued what he did last year. He's a professional hitter. He has been for a long time. Is he defying father time a little bit? Yeah, probably. Yeah. But you know what? He's able to do it, and he's able to compete. And Gurriel Julie deserves at bats until he shows he can't have them anymore. So he's going to be a very big part of this club as well.
What is if you had to say your biggest concern about the Astros team in the field? Is it center field? Where are you most concerned about what they're going to plug into that spot?
So you've got middle of the diamond, right? You've got catcher, you've got short, you've got center. In center field, in shortstop, we just talked about Pena. You have an unproven player who hasn't been here yet, who is going to have the lights go on and things can get really fast. Now, if you can slow it down, fine, but it can get really fast here. You've got Siri and McCormick, I believe, in center, right? That has a chance to spend time. We'll see. And again, nothing against either one. McCormick's been here, Siri's been here. They performed in the postseason, but we'll see. Still very unproven commodities, and you really don't know what a player is going to do until year 3, because first you show up, then the league adjusts back to you, and then you should have to kind of adjust back to them, right? So we'll see where that goes. And then behind the plate, you have an aging Martin Maldonado, who is excellent defender. You got Jason Castro, who can hit, but is what we call a caddy in this particular situation, right? So he's their backup guy. You have a platoon split that's going to make sense from a defensive veteran leadership standpoint, but you have veteran guys who can't play, who don't play every day behind the plate, and question marks at the rest of the middle. That's a concern because the veteran leadership at short and center field isn't there anymore. Springer's not there, Correa's not there, and it really does have to go away from that position to a guy like Brantley, to a guy like Altuve and Bregman and Alvarez. And even now, with the growing up that he's done, Kyle Tucker has to take a bigger role in leadership and performance, because you're asking players who haven't done it yet to do it, to help you win a championship. But my biggest concern, to be honest with you, is the pitching staff.
Yeah.
And I say that because if you look at their rotation, you have what I think is about 820 innings out of the starting rotation. Okay, and there's roughly 1,700 innings in a season. That puts 700-800 innings on the backside, right? On the bullpen guys. So if you have 10 guys in the pen, you're asking every guy to throw 60 to 70 innings. That's with no injury history. You start looking around the field. You've got Verlander coming back. Okay, should be all right, but you don't know. You've got McCullers, who's out until July, who needs to. And I said this 4 or 5 years ago. And I think he got mad at me, in air quotes, got mad at me, but he needs to be a reliever and go into the bullpen, and you might see that transition. But you've got Urquidy, you've got Garcia, you've got Valdez, you've got some question marks for durability in that rotation, which puts, again, more pressure on the bullpen. And if you have Ryan Presley back there and company who hasn't been all healthy all the way, you have more concerns as well. So if they have any kind of breakdown, we're in a tough spot from a pitching standpoint.
When you talked about defying father time, I thought about Verlander, only because of the kind of surgery, the kind of injury he had with his age coming back. When do you think we'll see Verlander in the rotation? How soon?
I think he's gonna start the year. I thought he had a pretty good spring, and I don't see him any reason he's going to be delayed. My concern is really beyond him. I think if he gives you 6 every night, that's all you can ask for at this point, right? It's 6 innings every night. The rest of the rotation, 4 innings, 5 innings, 6 innings, some nights 7. I mean, Jake Odorizzi, we don't know we don't know we're gonna get there either. He's at 5, right? So it's really, I think, not so much even Justin Verlander. It's beyond him.
Yeah. Well, and I know that you said McCullers, we won't see him until July. And I've wondered that about him. Like, is his place the bullpen? Is that where he should be? I mean, he spent some time there. I know everybody wants, not everybody, but you want to start. That's where you want to be. And he showed up well there last year. But where can you be consistently and be consistently effective?
I think Lance, it could be one of the best closers in the game. And I think at this point in his career, with a long-term deal in his pocket, it's the time to transition it, right? I also believe that for this team, that's his best fit. I don't think he's a 2-3 starter here. I think he has to be a guy who comes out of the back bullpen. My dog obviously agrees. Bernie's going.
He's with us, right?
And if you've never seen Bernie, he's a Texas livestock guard dog. He's an Anatolian Shepherd and Pyrenees, and he is just a beast, gigantic of a dog. So somebody's outside talking about Lance McCullers. He got a little angry. So, but no, it's I think this is his time to do that. I think he helped fortifies the staff in whole and protects his longevity, because he's not any good to this team. Nobody is if they're hurting on the DL all the time, right?
Right.
He's had enough of an injury history now, similar to a Rich Harden years ago, by the time he got to Houston, who had that type of injury history and that type of delivery and execution issues, that he's the best fit for this club, and this club needs him there. My concern with the Astros gets into putting pressure on people who aren't ready to have it yet. Justin Verlander's not ready to go 9 innings every night. No. He's not going to do it anyway. And at this point in time in his career, it's not right for him to do it. 6 and 7's about right. Urquidy, 5 innings, right? Valdez, maybe 6, and the occasional 7 or 8. But you start averaging this stuff together,
right?
What these guys will do, you're going to run short, and they're going to need some help from somewhere on the mound. Now, James Click has done an excellent job last year to acquire pitching to help them move forward. I don't know what else they got out there to give, right? Because the prospects are still there. Now, look, I'm sure they'll pull some magic out of their hat somewhere. He's done a good job with finding, and that's what the analytics do, is they find undervalued prospects or players, and they bring them over to help what you have. There's always so many times you can catch lightning in a bottle. And so I got to believe that he is I got to believe that James is going to be able to pull that off in some fashion. But these guys need to stay healthy, or they're going to run out of arms real quick.
And I think that's the key. And I know I want to get you out on time so you'll come back. They've got to stay healthy. I'm curious to see what they're going to do. I'm sure he's looking at ways to fortify this roster that they are not done. But how good do you think this Astros team can be? Will we be talking about them in the postseason as a possibility for another shot at the championship?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're a playoff team. I think 90 wins is what you're looking at, and I think that's if everything goes right. 95 was last year's win total. They're not a 100-win club. Part of that's because the division is so much better. Seattle is a very good club. The Angels are going to be better. They're not ready yet, but they're going to be better. And those guys don't have a choice in Anaheim, right? I mean, they can't continue to waste Mike Trout's prime years with an Anthony Rendon and who's now becoming the best player in the game, Shohei Ohtani. You can't have a trio like that and not surround it with people to help you win. You can't do it. And they need to get some pitching, and they need to address their needs. And so they're going to be a force here pretty fast too. The Astros this year is likely the tail end of a window unless they do something drastic. A few years ago, what they did was they went out and paid everybody. And they just paid everybody. And that's what they should have done, to keep the window open to try to find some players. But then you have, the sign stealing scandal, they lose draft picks.
Right.
And so they lose a couple of years to fortify the system. And then you have some misses that were pretty consistent. Whitley, J.B. Bukowskis, who's no longer in the organization, Seth Beer, who's no longer in the organization, Corbin Martin's no longer here. He's got some talent. He's probably a reliever. So you have some guys that they moved to acquire some big league pieces, but there's not a whole lot. There's not a whole lot coming behind them. And if you count the missed drafts, which are about 5 of them in a row, 6 of them in a row, if you count the what's in the system today and what they had to move to get players back to be competitive, there's not a whole lot of help. So you have to kind of go out and get creative. So I think it's a 91 club. I think it's a postseason club. but I think it's going to be a fight this year. I don't think it's going to be a wire to wire. I don't think it's going to be a runaway. I think it's going to be a fight. And Dusty Baker's going to have to do one of his best jobs managing that he's ever done to help keep these guys on task and have them move forward. That said, if anybody can do it, it's Dusty and these guys who have faced unprecedented adversity when it comes to all the stuff they've dealt with, right? So I have a lot of hope. I have a lot of confidence in them. It's going to be a fun club to watch from the guys who go here. But 90 wins, I think, is where they end up, and I think they end up in the postseason in some fashion.
You know, Dusty had to do some managing last year too. You know, to even really get him the postseason. And last thing before you go, the remarks with Carlos Beltran and Cashman from the Yankees. Were you surprised? I mean, one of the GM for the Yankees would say, "Well, yeah, if the Astros had the cheating scandal, that's why we haven't won a World Series, which is absurd." But that Carlos Beltran would make those comments. I was surprised by that. Disappointed.
I mean, how you want me to answer? Let me answer it this way. I'll start with Brian Cashman. The Yankees haven't won a World Series in quite some time, right. And there's another era like this before they turn into the Yankees we're still holding on to mentally, and that was in the 80s and the early mid-90s. It was about a 18-year stretch. They didn't win a whole lot, right? Mm-hmm. 70s after Reggie left, call it 1980, let's say. Reggie went to Anaheim all the way up until about 1995. Like, they didn't win. Like, it's 15 years, right? And their last World Series title was what, 99? Is that right? 2000?
2000.
2000. Right. Yeah, it was 2000. So we're now 22 years. So we're not in a. Don't tell me we're in a drought because 1 year somebody did something. Brian Cash has been the Yankees general manager since the late 90s, since he took over for Bob Watson. So they haven't won in quite some time. He's in job protection mode. So he's trying to say, see, I built good teams. This is what we have. Furthermore, and I say this, and look, the Yankees are a club that I'm personally have some relationships with. I have to say it this way. The hires that they've made in their organization in player development and scouting have been and analytics have been suspicious at best. And they haven't gone. Not everybody. They've got some good people there. They do, but they've let some people go they shouldn't let go. They've walked away from their success and they've tried to overdo it on one discipline in the game instead of having some kind of balance. And the results are 22 years of no titles. Okay, that's not Houston Astros' problem. That is a Yankees organizational philosophy where, as I say constantly to people when we're talking about franchises, you're the New York Yankees, act accordingly. Stop it. Okay, let's go ahead and move forward, and you might have some wins. So that's Cashman. For Carlos Beltran, it's 5 years ago. If we're paying attention, it's not his first time because he talked about how the advancements the Yankees had ahead of that. Where he got to, okay, and he was doing this stuff in Kansas City as well. I mean, anybody who's ever been around him or played with him will tell you he was always looking for some kind of advantage. That's okay. You should be doing that until it becomes illegal. Now, do I believe him that Jeff Luhnow in the front office didn't? Yeah, I do. Because I've never been a Luhnow fan of his integrity and what he did and the front office ran. I've been saying that for years, and so I 100% support it. But you don't need to throw people under the bus 5 years later because it's a different club and you were directly – he's basically in defense mode. It's like, yeah, it wasn't my fault. They should have told us no. Nah, man, you owned it, and that's why Josh Reddick and Altuve and the guys that didn't do it said, I want no part of this, right? Because they actually didn't do it. So Carlos needs to kind of let it rest. He needs to, stop worrying about his protecting himself because obviously the game has moved on at this point to a level where we can go out and play. The Houston Astros don't deserve to carry that around anymore. It's been 5 years. Let them go play. And all you're doing is giving them more incentive to beat you. And if you're working in New York, whether it's managing the Mets for 4 days before you get let go, or you're now a analyst, you need to remember that there's now going to be a target on you, and you probably need to keep control of your own house instead of worry about what they're doing down here in Texas. And
with that, I'm going to say thank you. Thank you, Jeremy Booth. I appreciate it. I know it was a busy day. It was last minute. You always show up. Great stuff. And I guess I'll see you on the Astros home opener.
I will be there April 18th when the Astros play the Angels. So, yes, thank you as always for having me. Good to see you. And I'll see you in a couple weeks.
All right. Thanks, Jeremy. Have a good day. All right, everybody, that's Jeremy Booth. He is the expert extraordinaire. He breaks it all down. He brings it when we talk about baseball, and I appreciate his insight and his knowledge. And so we heard it from Jeremy. He said Astros, probably about a 90 win team. Got a chance to know him throughout the season last year, and he pretty much nailed it all along, in terms of when we talk about what's happening, game, series, what's coming up. So I appreciate Jeremy Booth. The Astros season opener, the regular season, they open this week. They open on the road, so they will be opening, and it's so weird because they usually open at home. But their first game is Thursday, April the 7th, which is also my sister's birthday. Happy birthday in advance, Peaches. They're on the road in Los Angeles. Then they're on the road the whole next week. They come back. Their home opener is Monday, April the 18th, and they play host to the Los Angeles Angels. Anaheim Angels, however you want to look at it. So that's when they play at home. It's actually the day after Easter. It's tax day. It's a whole lot of things, but it's the opening day for the Houston Astros. I would be there. I'm looking forward to it. And I'm looking forward to just them playing games that they've been playing games, right? Spring training, but regular season games. It starts this Thursday. So they didn't have to postpone. They didn't have to miss too much of the regular season with the lockout, but I'm glad that is behind them. And I'll be curious to see, I'm watching to see what James Click is going to do with this Houston Astros roster. And I agree with Jeremy. They're going to have to really work to fortify the pitching staff, especially the bullpen. Because when he broke it down that way in terms of innings, it's about 1,700 and something innings. You got about 865 with your starting rotation. So how do you get through the rest? When you look at it in terms of numbers like that, you're like, it also comes down to how healthy can they be. So I'm looking forward to seeing Jeremy Pena. I think that as long as people don't expect him to be Carlos Correa, because there is only one Carlos Correa, but in terms of what he can give you production-wise, he should be able to defensively be solid and grow. I mean, Altuve says he's going to be a superstar, right? And so all we can do is hopefully not put too much pressure on him in terms of what he can accomplish and what he can do. All right, so let's move on to, we were talking about basketball before Jeremy Booth joined us. I super appreciate him spending time. I actually went a little bit long, and I try to really be conscious of time so that when I call people, they come back. But we are in the final weeks of this season and the final week of the regular season. I was giving you numbers about where the teams are. The other thing that's coming up, of course, is the NFL draft, April the 28th. And there is some news out of the Houston Texans that the Houston Texans are delivering this morning. And no, they have not made a trade. But what they're doing is they're going to have, the draft party is usually at NRG Stadium, right? They have a big draft party and they open it up to fans. But this year, they're moving the draft party to Miller Outdoor Theater. So the draft starts at 7 o'clock. Fans will be able to enjoy activities in the fan zone on site at Miller Outdoor Theater beginning at 3 p.m. So they're bringing the draft party back, and they're doing it in a whole new way. Some of the things that the party will include: live Zoom calls from head coach Lovie Smith and Texans draft picks. I mean, Lovie Smith will not be at Miller Outdoor Theater because they've got to be in the war room, so to speak, so that they can do the work of the draft. But they'll have live Zoom calls that fans who are on site at Miller Outdoor Theater will be able to participate with, special appearances by current players. They're going to have live DJs, a fan zone, the NFL's network. They'll have that coverage on big screen. So it's going to be sounds like a great time for fans. I mean, being at NRG Stadium for the fans, to me, was always like, it's such a huge stadium. The stadium's not all the way full, but I imagine being at Miller Outdoor Theater, that experience for fans could be really cool. And having this sort of experience that the Texans are putting together. I mean, listen, they're trying to engage fans again. They know that they have lost. They know that they've lost some fans in the last couple of years. And so they are doing some different things. And that's what businesses do. Like, how do we re-engage our community and their community as fans? And so they're working on doing that. I'm not here to be their, the Texans cheerleaders, but I do want to give credit where credit is due, that they're looking to do some things differently to engage their fans and their community. And so Miller Outdoor Theater is where the draft party is going to be on April the 28th. There's free parking. Of course, there's I'll put information up on my page where there's some video and some B-roll. We were holding it. The announcement was at 10. So since my show starts at 10, they did send it, and I wanted to make sure I mentioned it. But I'm going to show you some of the video and B-roll of what you can expect, and see what they do. I mean, this draft is super important for this Texans team, right? They've got some draft capital for the first time in a few years. They've got first round picks. They've got multiple first round picks. They got a whole lot of needs, right? So what are they going to do? How are they going to fulfill those needs, right? Good morning, everybody. So good morning, Sylvia, my lovely sister. My other sister, Kim Edwards Williams. Hello. Michael Scott says, what's going on with Springer? So Springer is playing in Toronto. We don't hear as much about him here just because he's in Toronto and he's not here anymore. But he is, he's still performing. He's had a fair amount of success, and the Blue Jays last year were right there in the hunt and in the thick of things in terms of postseason. So as far as I know, all is well with George Springer. Good morning, Reverend Battle. It's good to see you. Thank you for being a part of the show. Whoops, no, don't do that. Why am I not? And good morning, Ellen. That's my sister who I told you has a birthday coming up on Thursday, the Astros opening day, although they'll be on the road. They're opening on April 7th, which is her birthday. So happy birthday in advance. And good morning, LaWanda Phillips, my godmother. Thank you for being a part of the show. So listen, many of you watch the show. You watch in different places. Like, I'm on a lot of different platforms. And one of the things I'm going to do, and I'm going to give it until the beginning of May, but I'm going to I'm going to move the show. It'll still be live and you can still access it live, but I'm going to move it exclusively to YouTube. So what I'm going to ask you to do is to go to my YouTube page, right? To go to, wait, hang on a second. I'm going to ask you to go to Chalk Talk on YouTube and to subscribe. I'm going to put the link in the comments when we're done with the show, and if you'll go there and subscribe so that you will get notifications about Chalk Talk, I'm going to announce it over the next few weeks, and then beginning in May, the second Tuesday in May is the first week that we'll do the show exclusively live on YouTube. So beginning on May 10th, we'll do the show on YouTube. I'll do some snippets. I'll do some other live things on all the platforms where you're seeing me, on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Twitter. But I want to streamline where you get the show so that I can drive more people to one place, right? So we can do more things and maybe even add an additional day to the broadcast. We've talked about it for really years. Many of you said, hey, can you be on more often? We'd love to see you on more days. And so how do I best do that, right? So this is the plan, is to get you to subscribe, if you will. Go to YouTube and subscribe. It's just Chalk Talk with Kim. You'll see it. Put in the name, Chalk Talk with Kim. I'm going to put the link in the comments. So whether you're watching the show live or you're watching it in the replays, you'll be able to see the link where you can just click that link, a one-time link, and subscribe to my YouTube broadcast. And get your friends to subscribe, right? So I need to get that subscription up, the base of subscribers to 1,000 as quickly as possible. And so I'm asking you guys for your help in doing that. So I'm thanking you in advance for helping me with the subscription and growing it that way. And let me see, drop it right now as well, but I'm also going to put it later. Um, so I'm going to put it in the comments now. And what I'll probably also do is pin it at the top, but that way you can just go click that link and you'll be able to subscribe. So yeah, I think I pinned it. So it should be at the top of the comments, and you should be able to click that link and subscribe to my YouTube channel. So I'm thanking you in advance for doing that. So subscribe, and you'll get notifications about Chalk Talk. Nothing else changes. The show will be the same. You know, we're going to just continue to add some different elements to the show. The big interview, we're doing that most shows now. And I was glad that Jeremy Booth could be our big interview for this week, so that we can talk about Astros as they get ready for the season opener later in the week. Of course, coming up, we're going to be talking a lot about the NFL draft, because that's going to be the really kind of the big news, or the big story, if you will, coming up. A lot to, there's been a lot of activity in terms of free agency this NFL offseason. So what will these Houston Texans do? I know a lot of you who tune in are Cowboy fans, and I also seem to have quite a pretty big following of Pittsburgh Steelers fans. And I'm sure now there's some Cleveland Brown fans, because I know many of you have followed Deshaun Watson and are following him in terms of your support to the Cleveland Browns. I'm curious, when we talk about the Cleveland Browns, as to what they're going to do with Baker Mayfield, right? There don't seem to be really any takers for him right now, and I think it's more to do with his price tag than his ability. He's got some ability, but what he will probably have to do, I have a couple of you sent me messages and texted me and said, hey, what do you think they're going to do with Baker Mayfield? I don't know. Do they hold on to him till after the draft, and until they get into, a little further into off season, if you will, and do they wait and see if there's an injury that opens up a spot for him, or does he try to go to a place and really do what Ryan Tannehill did, go someplace and be a backup, and be ready when there's an opportunity, do what like a Marcus Mariota had to do, or Ryan Tannehill. Does he do that? I don't know. What it does probably do is really put your ego in check, right? To be the number one overall pick, and now to be where it seems like nobody wants you. And that's a little bit of an overstatement, right? It's the price tag, right, that nobody probably really wants. But, he'll have to find the spot, the team that is a good fit for him and all that comes with him, because he's a different individual, and he's got some ability. I never thought that Baker Mayfield was going to be a superstar in the National Football League, but he'll undoubtedly get another chance to play somewhere, because he's got a hefty price tag that the Browns would probably have to eat a lot of, because no other team's going to want to pick up that price tag for a guy who has a lot of question marks. So we'll see what happens with Baker Mayfield. We'll see what happens with whatever your favorite teams are. We'll look at what's happening with the draft, right? The mock drafts have already started. In fact, the mock drafts have started. They started after the last season, so I don't put a lot of stock into those drafts, because there are just so many of them. But I will tell you, I do pay attention to John Harris from the sideline reporter with the Houston Texans. He does a pretty good job of breaking down the draft. I know many people will go and look at, some of the big names and say, oh, what are they saying? But so John Harris right now has the number 3 pick, being the offensive lineman, Akeem Ikwanu. And I wonder, I think in his mock draft, and I was trying to pull it up for you, that he talked about, in his mock draft, that he thinks Texans will maybe trade that third pick. And I'm curious to see. Wait, here it is. So in his draft, he has the 13th pick. He has a tackle, which the Texans also have, Evan Neal out of Alabama. He thinks that they'll take. They're gonna. He thinks they're gonna trade that third pick, and so with that they're gonna get some other picks, right? So they'll have the 13th pick, which is Evan Neal, the tackle out of Alabama, and the 14th pick, Drake London, the wide receiver out of USC. So those are that's what he has as being the Texans' first two picks, because in his mock draft, they are trading the third pick, and they're going to get the 14th pick in the first round, a second round pick, a third round pick, and a fourth round pick. So, and then a first round pick in 2023. That's a lot. So if they can get those 5 picks for that one pick at 3, it will be interesting that they would make that deal. So then in the second round, they would have the 37th pick, which is the cornerback. They need a cornerback out of Baylor, Jalen Petrie. And then also in the second round, they would pick at 45, Kenyon Green, the guard from Texas A&M. So that is who John Harris thinks the Texans will pick in the first 2 rounds. I'm not going to go through his whole pick, but we'll go over that and we'll talk about it more over the next few days. We'll talk about it more over the next week or so, because the draft is April the 28th. So we still have a little bit of time. We'll be talking more baseball and basketball before we really delve into the draft. But remember a few things about that I want to make sure you know, that this show that is brought to you, that Chalk Talk is brought to you by Kimmy Treats. So you can go to KimmyTreats.com and order your popcorn and your organic hand with body butter. That is the primary sponsor of Chalk Talk is Kimmy Treats. So make sure you go check out KimmyTreats.com, and also remember to subscribe. I pinned the link in the comments, so you can click on that link and it will let you automatically subscribe. And know that when you subscribe to YouTube, that is free. There's no charge to subscribe. I was talking to a good friend the other day, and he said, I didn't realize that these subscriptions, and people would say, hey, subscribe, that they're free. And so he said that sometimes I just didn't. So I want to make sure you know that you can go and subscribe on YouTube. You still get to watch the show on YouTube for free, like you do here on Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter, wherever you're watching it. But we're just going to be moving the show by the second week in May. We're going to move it to the live show will be completely live on YouTube. So I need you to subscribe so that you can be reminded by it. So go to that link that is posted in the comments, and you hit that link. I posted it. It'll take you to the place where you can subscribe to Chalk Talk on my YouTube channel. So thank you so much for being a part of today's show. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate you being a part of the Chalk Talk family. And I'm encouraging you to remember to bring somebody else along with you. Like, give them that link, invite them to the show the next couple of weeks. And you can even start watching the show now on YouTube. But I'm not going to just abandon all of you without giving time for people to get used to saying, hey, we've got to catch the show on YouTube. I'll do other little live things throughout the week on these platforms, on my Facebook, on my LinkedIn, on my Twitter. I will show up live and do some other things, but the Chalk Talk show is going to move exclusively to YouTube beginning on May the 10th. So I thank you in advance for subscribing and for being a part of the tribe, right? So remember to share this video wherever you're watching it today, to share the video, to share the subscription link, if you will. And also, remember, if you have not gotten vaccinated, right? Be vaccinated. If you're not registered to vote, make sure that you register. Super important. It's a crazy busy year. We've got a lot going on, and we need for you to be registered so that your voice can be heard. If you happen to watch the any of the confirmation hearings for Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson, as she is in line to become a member, a jurist on the Supreme Court, the first African American woman, but she is beyond qualified and capable. And if you saw any of the proceedings, any of the the confirmation hearings, if you will, and if you were as annoyed or sickened by what you saw, that display, that theater, as I am, right, as I was, then you definitely want to be registered to vote. And you want that discussed. The way that we best handle it is by showing up at the polls and voting for the policies and people you think best support your family, your community, and what's best for your life, right? What's best for you. So none of what I saw in those confirmation hearings is best for me. Not from the side that was questioning her and asking her the offensive questions. It was degrading. It was disrespectful, and it was really unnecessary. And we need that, in my opinion. That behavior needs to be out of politics, so that perhaps we can get back to a place where we can work together. We can disagree without being disagreeable, right? But we can find a way to work together, because we should all have some things in common. Like I should want you to have a good life, just like I want to have a good life. It should not be either or. Why can't it be yes and? Anyway, go register to vote. Go get your vaccine. If you're vaccinated, get boosted, and still practice some precautions. I mean, like, I'm still wearing my mask when I go in grocery stores, because some of y'all, I don't know what you're doing, and I don't want no problems, okay? But be safe, be smart, get vaccinated, get boosted, and make sure you're registered to vote. Also, remember, do something kind for somebody else, and do something kind for yourself. Until next time, next week, I'll see you right here. Wherever you're watching Chalk Talk, I'll see you right here. But make sure you go to my YouTube channel and subscribe. The link is in the comments. It's posted at the top. It's pinned at the top. Click that link. Go and subscribe, and I'll see you next week on Chalk Talk. Have a great week, everybody. Thank you.